This is getting ridiculous. Once again, a Cavaliers star player in the middle of trade rumors, and once again, I will need to shut it down. It's becoming too much. Preseason's here. Can we just enjoy the preseason a little bit, please? That's all I ask. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Cavs Digest. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm your host, Darayus Sethna. Before we get into today's video, just want to send you that friendly reminder, like this video and subscribe to our Cavs Digest YouTube channel. Look at those numbers there. Just want to give you that friendly reminder. Over 2/3 of you who watch our videos are not actually subscribed to our channel. So that's bad in two ways, because one, you're not helping yourself out. You're not getting up to date with the latest content and news with the Cleveland Cavaliers on this channel, and then you're not helping us out on the back end with ratings and all that good stuff. So help yourself out, help me out, help the Cavs Digest team out. We definitely love it if you could like this video and subscribe to the Cavs Digest channel. So going into today's video, I want to talk about, obviously, who I showed in the intro, Darius Garland, because once again, the trade talks have, kind of died down a little bit here, but Garland's name is still floating around in bits and pieces here in trade talks, and I'm putting my foot on it once again. Matt and I were doing this over the summer. Darius Garland is not going anywhere, and he is staying in Cleveland, Ohio. So, like I said, his name's kind of sputtered around in trade talks during the offseason as well, and it just never made sense to me. So, the Cavs Digest team were sharing some ideas, and they shared an article with me that discussed a trade package involving the New Orleans Pelicans. And no, when you see Zion Williamson up there, it is the Cavs would not be getting Zion Williamson. That would be a whole another topic, whole other story for another day. But the reason Garland was brought up with the Pelicans is because New Orleans is still looking to make that push with Zion Williamson at the core of their team. Remember, Zion, the number one pick in the 2019 NBA draft, but just injuries and other health concerns, off the court issues have really plagued him from really stepping up and being that franchise guy. And the really frustrating thing with Zion is we've seen him do it when he's healthy, when he's locked in. He is one of the best players and one of the biggest just talents in the NBA on a given night. But he hasn't lived up to those expectations, and so the Pelicans want to try to find a co-star for him, a consistent co-star, so that when he is injured, they can, the Pelicans can stay level, and when Zion is back, they'll obviously go to newer heights. So again, just finding that co-star. And when you think about the trade package here that I found in the article, it does make sense. Obviously, from New Orleans' perspective, you're getting a guard to pair with Zion Williamson at that forward position. But for the Cavs, this is a trade that makes sense. DeJounte Murray, I really like as a player. I'll get into his stats a little bit as well. You get another player and then a first-round pick out of it. So the content of the trade makes sense. This would be, if you were not a Cavs fan or a Pelicans fan, and you say you were a basketball fan in general, and you said, "Is this seem like a viable trade, a fair trade?" I'd say yes. I think that's a pretty fair trade. But the reason it's a ridiculous proposal is because of the numbers I'm going to show you here right now on Darius Garland. I cannot tell you how many times I shared this graphic during my offseason videos, and just, again, what else does Darius Garland need to prove on the court, right? The 31 minutes per game, 21 points per game. He's, locked in, right in all-star at this point. Write him in for that every year if he keeps playing the way he's been playing. And then it's those 7 assists per game, right? I think just the field goal percentage, I really saw a jump in terms of his efficiency last season. So I think he's going to continue to build on that as well. And like I said, there's nothing on the court. There's nothing basketball skill-wise, and maybe defense a little bit. Other than that, then Darius Garland really needs to prove. If there's anything Darius Garland needs to show me, is that he can stay healthy when it matters most, not faltering out of the playoffs, right? Injuries, obviously, you can't, he's not asking to be injured, right? But you need to be as healthy as you can be when it matters for those second-round matchups. Hopefully for the Cavs this year, it'll be at the conference finals, very possibly NBA finals. So to me, if there's anything Darius Garland needs to prove, it's that he can stay healthy throughout the course, specifically of the postseason. Now, getting back into the trade itself, this proposed trade that would send DeJounte Murray to the Cavs, the reasoning was this. It was in an article via SI.com. Should New Orleans swing big on a trade for Garland, they'd have the co-star the team has been searching for to pair with Williamson, which I mentioned earlier. So without sharing looks with Mitchell and Mobley, Garland likely notches an upward tick in production alongside his new pick-and-roll partner. Again, for basketball reasons, that all makes sense, right? I'm not saying this is a terrible trade from a basketball perspective. Darius Garland is going to have an uptick in New Orleans if he were to go there, because he'd be the number 2 guy behind Zion Williamson, and if Zion Williamson is out, Darius Garland's the number 1 guy on that team. But once again, the reason I go kind of into this here's on the Cavs end, they'd be receiving DeJounte Murray from in this deal. Now, DeJounte Murray, going into him a little bit more, I do like him as a player. He's actually one of my favorite players to watch in the NBA. It was tough to see him go down with a couple injuries last year, but for his career, he's averaged about 15.5 points per game, 6 rebounds, 5 assists per game, and he's pretty efficient, 45% from the field overall. He has a really nice mid-range pull-up game, has a nice jump shot. That's, one big reason he's efficient from the field. But overall, I really like DeJounte Murray's game a lot. He's obviously a lockdown defender as well. I was kind of scratching my head on why the Atlanta Hawks traded him. I think, he was a really good asset for that team. But at the end of the day, I do like DeJounte Murray. And if he ended up in a Cleveland Cavaliers uniform, I would have no problem with it. But Darius Garland would still have to be on the team. I'm not giving up Darius Garland for DeJounte Murray, not going that far. And going back into that injury history, if you look at DeJounte Murray, he's dealt with some pretty big injuries. I just mentioned last season dealt with a fractured hand to start the year, and then his season ended in January of 25 with an Achilles tear. So he's coming off and made 2 kind of major injuries there. So for the Cavs, in that regard, it also just wouldn't make sense. And then going into this slide as well, if you look at the theoretical backcourt pairing of Donovan Mitchell and DeJounte Murray, obviously this is a lockdown defensive backcourt, in my opinion, but I think this is putting a little bit too much pressure on Donovan Mitchell to be more of a facilitator. DeJounte Murray can definitely facilitate, but I think it just puts a lot more pressure on Donovan Mitchell to do more things. I think Mitchell really needs to focus on scoring, doing a little bit more on defense, rebounding, not necessarily facilitating the offense. That's why Darius Garland is so vital for this Cavs team. He takes pressure off of guys like Mitchell, Mobley, Jarrett Allen to initiate the offense and get people involved. That's the point guard's job. And Darius Garland, with this 7 assists per game last year, only expect that number to keep going up, or at least stay the same with the talent around him. I think the Cavs are in perfect shape. So going off that to end my video, I think the theme of today is pretty simple. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We don't need, especially at this point in the NBA season. The Cavs have their second preseason game tonight in Chicago against the Bulls, so I'll excited to see how the young talent builds off of their pretty strong performance at home this past Tuesday. We'll see what happens. But at the end of the day, the Cavs are a championship contender. There's a reason they are picked to win the Eastern Conference. There's a reason they, were second. Last time I looked at ESPN odds, they were the second favorite to win the NBA championship this year behind the Oklahoma City Thunder. There's a reason for all this. They are ready to win now. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. The proof is in the pudding. We saw it last year with Kenny Atkinson, what this team was able to do. There's no need to shake things up. But let me know your thoughts. Again, I think Darius Garland, he's obviously under contract. He's been a vital piece for this Cleveland Cavaliers team for quite some time now, and I think it would be silly and honestly irresponsible to trade him, let alone for a player in DeJounte Murray, who, again, I like, but has had some injury history and just is not the same level of scorer and facilitator as Darius Garland. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Want to read what you guys have to say. And also, make sure you like our videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Cavs Digest because we want to see that 67.5% number drop down. In a perfect world, that goes to 0%, so all of you are subscribed so you can receive the latest content and Cavs news as the season begins. Like I said, Cavs in Chicago tonight to take on the Bulls, 8 p.m. Eastern time for their second of 4 preseason games. Until next time, I'll see you for another episode of Cavs Digest. Thanks so much for joining me today, everybody, and take care.